Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the case of Magdalena Zuk. Now, she was often known as Magda from what I believe, so that is how I'm going to refer to her in this video. She was actually from Poland, but she died in Egypt after jumping out of a hospital window at the age of just 27. Her death was actually ruled a suicide, but the circumstances leading up to and surrounding her death were very, very strange to say the least. And they're actually just downright frightening. Many people do believe that the official report is incorrect, and that is why I'm going to go through this case with you guys. Let me also say that Magda was Polish, so there's a lot of either Polish names, Arabic names, because it happened in Egypt, and I'm not going to lie, I'll probably butcher them, so I really apologize profusely now. If I pronounce anything incorrectly, I really try, but I find them so hard when they're sort of foreign cases. I mean, I'm not even sure if I pronounced a surname correctly. I don't know whether it's Zuk, Jacques, I don't know. So I apologize profusely for that. I've tried to watch a few videos and I guess people say it all differently, so I don't know how it's said properly. I'd just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone I'm going to talk about today. I've just gathered this information from the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. Magdalena Zuk was born in a town in Poland called Bogatynia. Again, I am sorry if I've said that wrong. By all accounts, from what I could find, she had a pretty normal childhood, nothing untoward or anything like that. She did suffer in adult life a little bit with her father being an alcoholic, which she attended therapy for. But apart from that, her childhood was pretty normal. When she reached the age of 17, she decided that she was going to move out. So she moved to a town called Escalating, or it might not be called that. I don't know, again, how to pronounce it. It was around 30 minutes away from the family home, however. Magda was like a really ambitious girl. She kind of knew what she wanted and she just went for it, and she normally achieved it. She finished her cosmetic studies and by the age of 22, she had opened up her own beauty salon. She was very on track for what she wanted. She was so interested in cosmetics and things, and now she was running her own business, which is amazing. Not only that, she worked really hard because she was also working towards a bachelor's degree in Erratic. So she had this business that she was running, and then she's also studying really hard, and it must have been a lot of work for her. But that was what she wanted to do, so she did it. So as you can tell, she was a very busy woman. She also had a boyfriend who was called Marcus. She'd only apparently been with Marcus for around 3 to 4 months, so they'd not been together that long really. But she decided that it was coming up to his birthday, and so she was going to surprise him with a trip to Egypt, an all-inclusive trip to Egypt. Now the weird thing is that she only told him about it 7 hours before they were actually due to go. So that's kind of risking it in my eyes. Like, what if he was doing something or he was busy? I know it's a holiday, but if you're literally tied into something that you can't get out of, it's kind of risking it a little bit. Anyway, she was described as actually being really spontaneous, and so whether that was abnormal for her or not, I don't know. Either way, it was a really nice thing for her to do for him, you know, to book this all-inclusive holiday to Egypt. Would have been an amazing birthday present. It would have been a break for her, it would have been a break for him, they would have been able to spend some quality time together, and it would have just been so lovely. The problem was though, he had problems with his passport. So your passports have an expiry date, of course they do, but certain countries won't let you in if it is so close to that expiry date. I don't know whether it's about 6 months. Maybe, I'm not sure. So if you're sort of past, say it is 6 months, say you've got 3 months to it being expired, some countries won't let you in, and Egypt wouldn't let him travel because of that. So they called everyone to try and get him in, to try and sort of get around it somehow, but nobody was having any of it. He didn't have enough time on his passport, and therefore the answer was no, he was not going to go to Egypt. She had actually booked a 4-star all-inclusive hotel in the Marseilles Resort on the Red Sea, so it was a beautiful place. It was called Three Corners Equinox Beach Resort, and it was quite an expensive holiday, and the hotel was expensive, especially with it being all-inclusive. Sometimes it can cost more. And now the person that she had actually bought it for wasn't able to go. The flight was due on the 27th of April in 2017 at 8:30 p.m. And 4 hours before that, Marcus posts on Facebook about trying to sell the tickets. He stated, "I'll sell the flights to Egypt today at 8:20 in a 4-star hotel. The trip was worth around $1,000, but we'll sell half price for 2 people." So clearly he's trying to get rid of the tickets, trying to sell them because obviously you can't go. So they were hoping to sort of gain some money back. I don't know what the rules are with selling tickets. They were trying this just 4 hours before. I don't think it would have been possible, but I don't know anything about that, so I'm not sure on that one. Either way, no one seemed to come forward. Their friends weren't able to go. They were all busy. And so they were left there with these 2 tickets. So rather than lose the money and rather than lose the opportunity of going on holiday, yes, Marcus couldn't go, but now Magda decided that she was going to go alone. She worked really hard. She had paid for it and she wanted a break. And so why not? So she travelled over. She was seen on the flight acting completely normal, nothing sort of untoward. She arrives after midnight on the 26th in Hurghada. She rents a car to drive to the resort, which is a couple of hours away, I believe. Now, people have said that obviously on her arrival, they saw her drinking quite a lot, but again, it was all inclusive, and I don't see that as really too abnormal because personally, I went on an all-inclusive holiday and I don't really drink, like, at all. And I was drinking because it was there and it's already been paid for. So a lot of people do that. A lot of people drink a lot on all-inclusive holidays. There's not really anything too strange about that. The strange thing was that she was acting very, very weird. And this was within sort of the first day of arriving there. So she was seen drinking earlier, and then later on she started sending texts to her parents and her friends at home as if they were actually on holiday with her, which is so weird. She would message them saying things like, "Where are you? Come to my room now," as if they were actually there, as if they could get to her room and not back home in Poland. And her family knew that she was acting odd because obviously, why was she messaging them things like that? It was just strange. So people also said that they saw her acting strangely. So she'd be sat down, she'd be drinking, quiet, keeping to herself, and then suddenly she would jolt up, she would begin dancing, acting all erratic, and then suddenly just sit down again and continue drinking and just be all quiet again. She also asked people where Marcus was. Obviously Marcus wasn't able to attend. So there was something really, really strange going on, to the point where she thought her friends and family were there when they wasn't. She also said that she was hearing voices in her room. She was seen shouting down the hallways, doing sort of big arm motions. There's also a video of her lying on the floor, motionless in sort of this dressing gown. It kind of seemed like she was having some sort of mental breakdown. It also got a lot stranger than that. The family started receiving text messages from the phone of an employee at the travel agency saying things like, "Where are you and come to me." This man was called Mahmoud Khairi, and it was really, really thought to be very strange that he was hanging around Magda. People thought that maybe he was acting as a tour guide for her. Maybe he was helping her with the language barriers because he also spoke Polish and Arabic. But other people just thought it was really, really odd that he was hanging around her all the time. Either way, himself, along with the whole hotel staff, began looking after Magda. He sent her parents photos of her curled up on the bed, and obviously the video of her sort of on the floor to the parents to try and basically tell them to come and get her. Look at the state of her. She needs help. Come and get her. The crazy thing is that this all happened over kind of the first to second day that she was there. I'm not sure which, but she literally went to Egypt and then she was fine before that, and now she's acting absolutely erratically all over the place, just completely not herself at all. Marcus gets worried. He books a trip for one of his friends to go over to Egypt to go and collect her. This friend was called Mache, but unfortunately they couldn't get a flight until earliest Saturday. Magda also called her sister. She couldn't tell whatsoever what she was trying to say. It was all incoherent, and they just didn't have a clue what was going on. Her family must have been so frightened. And what was going through Magda's head at the time? she must have been frightened herself. Family and friends were really worried. They contacted the Polish embassy in Egypt and the travel company and everything. They tried to do everything they could to get her home. She got worse and worse. Staff were constantly trying to calm her down. She was hysterical. On Friday, some other residents of the hotel found Magda unconscious in the hallway, and that was when she was taken to hospital. So the hotel employees take her to the hospital. There's video footage of this. She walks in there, but she comes out having received no treatment whatsoever. We're not sure whether they don't treat mental health issues there, or that possibly when she got in there she was acting normal and they didn't see anything wrong with her, or also the fact that she could have just refused treatment. We just don't know. What we do know though is that a doctor actually stated that Magda wouldn't even get out of the car, but that isn't true because we have video footage, as I said, of her getting out of the car, walking into the hospital, and she's seen in the corridors. Yes, okay, she looks a little bit confused, but she is willingly getting out of the car. So why this doctor said that, I do not know. And this all happened in less than 48 hours, which, when you think about it, is madness. So she leaves the hospital and she goes back to the hotel. She then checks out and goes to the airport on a flight that I believe her family had booked for her. They were desperately trying to get her home. Now, the thing that truly breaks my heart here is she was acting that erratically, that I don't know what she was doing, but it was probably much worse than anything she'd done before, which was pretty bad, that they wouldn't let her board. So whether they thought she was a danger to others, a danger to herself, she just was in no state to board that plane. And it's really sad because she was right there. She was right there, ready to get on a plane to go home and seek the help, the treatment, anything that she needed. And she just couldn't hold it together long enough to be able to get on that plane home. And that, looking into this case, really, really breaks my heart because of what happened to her later on. If she would have just got on that plane then, none of the next things of what I'm going to talk about would have ever happened to her. I feel like she really, really had a bad mental breakdown on this trip, but I don't have a clue what caused it because she seemed fine before. She goes to Egypt and then suddenly she's acting beyond strange. So she goes back to the hotel, but because of her erratic behaviour at the hotel, they didn't want her back. They wouldn't let her check back in. And really, who can blame them? She had been very difficult to handle. They were a hotel. They didn't know how to handle her. And so when she checked out, they just wouldn't let her back in. At the same time, it's hard because you would want them to help her. You would want them to give her a room because she would then struggle to find another. And she did struggle. She tried to find another hotel, but she couldn't find one. There were no room anywhere. Or if there was room, they had heard about how Magda had been acting and they didn't want her there, so they refused her. Which again is just really sad. I know it's a hotel, it's a business and they're running a business, but I don't know, I like to feel like some people would be more compassionate towards things like mental health. I just don't know. And I don't blame them either. As I said, they have a business to run and they have, I guess, the other guests to protect and things like that. So from one of the hotel car parks, Marcus receives a phone call on Mahmoud's phone. It was a video call. And again, people are unsure of why he was there. Was he hanging around her for suspicious reasons, or was he just being a good Samaritan? Not only that, there was also another man there. So Magda's on this video call and to Marcus, to her boyfriend. One of Marcus's friends actually recorded it, so you can see her in the background with both hands free. She's not holding the phone. And they have around about a 13-minute conversation, I believe. People also found it strange that Mahmoud was using his phone. Why couldn't Magda use her own phone? She had roaming. She was able to call her boyfriend off her own phone. So why was everything coming from Mahmoud? And it seemed like everything that was getting sent to her family or anything like that was from him. And that was just really, really strange. Again, this entire case is just very strange. So during this 30-minute call, she looks really frightened.
Aniołku, nie bój się, powiedz mi, co się dzieje? Powiedz mi, nic się nie bój.
Marcus tells her not to be scared.
Skarbie, Maciek cię zabierze, dobrze? Rozumiesz? Skarbie, słuchasz mnie?
That Mache is on his way, he's coming to take her home. She went on to say they do all kinds of things to me here. Take me out of here. That was around about 2.5 minutes into the call.
Myszko?
Oni tutaj mają różne sztuczki, zabierz mnie stąd, oni tutaj wszystko robią. Zabierz mnie,
Ale co robią, co robią? Powiedz mi.
zabierz mnie.
Zabierzemy cię. Maciek już po ciebie leci, ale co oni robią?
Now, this call, obviously it was in Polish, and people have translated it into English, so whether there's any errors in that, I don't know. I'll try and put clippets of this call in as well, if I can find them. So she's saying that they do all kinds of things to her and that she wants to go home, and it's a bit of an odd thing to say to your worried boyfriend on the other end of the phone. So he asks her, obviously, what is the matter?
Aniołku, powiedz mi, proszę cię. Nie bój się, powiedz mi teraz.
Keeps asking her what's happened over and over. He pushes.
Co się stało? Mów. Powiedz śmiało, szybko, będziemy mieli to z głowy.
Eventually, she just tells him M. Now, Marcus asks if she's
Co M?
talking about Mahmood, and she doesn't answer. A man then supposedly says, I thought you were only going to be talking about hospital. How true that is, I don't know. I watched it on a video of a translation. Soon after, she says that she'll ring him back on her phone, and then Mahmood sort of jumps straight on the phone to try and speak to Marcus. This phone call was very strange, and it was just filled with lots of questions. Why were these men even there in the first place? Why was she not using her own phone? Why did she seemingly have no privacy to make this call? She wasn't even holding her own phone to make it. Somebody else was holding it for her. Magda was then taken back to Port Galib Hospital, where she was previously, by Mahmood. And it just gets more and more weird from here on out. Take a look at the video. She's sort of refusing to let anyone near her. She's running away, she's kicking, she's fighting. And there's two people there, the guys. I'm not sure whether it was the guys that was with her initially, maybe Mahmood and his friend. But she's trying to get away from them. She's kicking them, she's fighting them, and she's trying to get away from these men. You can see clearly the hospital staff in scrubs. Now, I don't know whether it's the same as in sort of the UK or anything like that, but doctors often wear trousers and a shirt rather than scrubs. Whether they do that in Egypt or they just wear the scrubs, I don't know. So I don't know whether these two men were Mahmood and that other man, or whether they were doctors trying to help her. I don't know. At one point in the video, she's on the floor in kind of a door alcove, I guess, and one of the men who she was trying to attack acts very, very strangely, and I do not understand it whatsoever. So he leans over on the door frame in the most peculiar way that I can't imagine anyone ever wanted to stand in that way, ever, because it just looks so unnatural, so uncomfy. I just don't get it. But the way he stands, also people have speculated that he was trying to cover Magda from the camera. Now, if that was the case, it works because you can't see Magda as he's doing it. Eventually, she was taken to a private room, forced into a bed with restraints by the form of towels. Now, apparently this is common practice in hospitals that don't have restraints because towels are pretty soft on the skin. So that is a normal thing to do if they don't have sort of the padded restraints that hospitals use. It was from here on where you wonder, how, if Magda is tied up, can she jump out of a hospital window? Well, apparently a nurse went in to tend to Magda, and Magda said that she needed the toilet. As soon as this nurse untied her for her to go to the toilet, Magda attacks her, turns around and leaps out of the window. It was a second-story window and she fell onto some concrete steps below. She fell on her left side and was severely injured from it, but still alive. She's then rushed to another hospital in Hagada, about 3 hours north, I believe. And this is where, in this hospital, she succumbed to her injuries from the fall, and she actually passed away early Sunday morning. Marche arrives Sunday morning, having taken an overnight flight, to the news that Magda has died. Which would have been really shocking to him. He was coming over to take her home, and he gets there and she's dead. It's just insane. The news reports in Poland and Egypt differed vastly. So Egypt's tourist driven. They want people to keep coming. They don't want controversy and things like that. So they tried to keep it, I guess, under the radar a little bit. They ruled it as suicide immediately. Whereas Poland, on the other hand, ran with the titles "Young Woman Murdered in Egypt" kind of stories. An autopsy was performed and they found no evidence of any sexual assault or any beating or anything like that whatsoever, any sort of trauma apart from those she sustained in the fall, which were consistent with a fall. It was confirmed by 2 separate teams of Polish experts. So the first one was done in Egypt by Egyptian medical examiners with a Polish expert present, and the second one was done obviously in Poland when her body was extradited back. She had drugs in her system, antidepressants, which presumably the hospital had given her, and she also had the injuries to coincide with her fall. Maybe Magda did just have a psychological episode. Many people say that booking the trip kind of 7 hours before really implies towards this, because people have stated that it's reckless, and that could have been sort of the beginning of it, and just escalated from there. When she got into a foreign country on her own, she didn't speak the language, and it just made everything worse. Her family do say that she was spontaneous though, and that is their reasoning behind her doing that, so I don't know. Also, she was never actually diagnosed with any mental health problems, but a lot of the time they can happen later on in life, or they go undiagnosed or something like that. It's not too uncommon. It's also not too uncommon for people to just snap. As sad as it is, it happens all the time. There are many theories about her. There's attempted kidnapping, that her boyfriend was in on it. And that's actually a popular theory in Poland, actually. Others think that maybe she was drugged. Or that maybe she had taken something on the plane, say anti-anxiety drugs or anything like that. And that maybe that had a bad side effect on her mental health. And looking into it, it is quite plausible for something like that to happen. It's not really too unheard of. There's also theories that maybe Mahmoud had raped her and she was frightened, terrified of him, she wanted to get away from him, and so she jumped out the window to escape. There's also a big theory about human trafficking, and many people believe that because she was behaving so erratically, they couldn't really do it quietly, they couldn't get her away quietly. But again, why did they take her to the hospital? Why did they take her to the airport? It's not something that a human trafficker would do. If she would have got on that plane, she would have gotten home. As I said before, that's why it broke my heart, because she would have been home and she wouldn't have jumped out of a window. I mean, she may have done that in Poland, but she would have been sent to a psychiatric hospital or something like that. There would have been some help there for her. It didn't have to end as tragically as it did. So that one just doesn't really make too much sense to me. This case was really strange and very interesting to look into. Personally, at least, I do think she had some sort of mental breakdown, that it escalated her paranoia, her fear, and it made her just behave so erratically, so strangely. It got worse and worse to the point that she was that frightened that she jumped out the window intentionally trying to kill herself, or just through sheer fear to try and get away from whatever was haunting her mind, and didn't actually mean to kill herself, but obviously the drop was quite high, and unfortunately the injuries she sustained were just too great. I don't know, there could be more to this story than we actually know. We probably will never ever know though. As I said, her death was ruled suicide. So take it as you want. What do you guys believe? Do you think she killed herself, or do you think there was something untoward going on that made her that frightened that she felt like she really needed to get away from it and that was her only option? And it's so sad because she was so young. She went on holiday to have a break from everything, and she never came back, and it's awful. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. I'll look into them for you. Give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Magdalena Zuk. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.